Welcome to Business Class, a podcast for people wanting to upgrade their thinking, upgrade their learning, and upgrade their life. I'm your host, Eugenia Panderhos, founder of Business Class Collective, best-selling author, and life coach. If you're an entrepreneur, a startup, or someone who dreams of reaching their full potential, then you're in the right place. You'll feel empowered and inspired to design the life you've always wanted. Let's do this. Hello and welcome back to the show. I hope you've had a wonderful week. This week, let me introduce to you Andrew Andrews. Andrew is a data governance manager, group risk information delivery at ANZ. He's Vice President Marketing DAMA International, President DAMA Australia, member of International Advisory Committee at dataleaders.org, and past chair of Fresh 92.7, and he's a life member. I can't wait to bring him and his story to you. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeannie.
Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, of course. Let's go.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
It's a bit of a complicated journey. I grew up in my early years was in Bowden and then in Findon. My parents were both born in Egypt, so that gave me a different spin on life because they were multilingual. I mean, they spoke 6 languages each, and I remember my whole early years was filled with music because my parents were a very musical family. They used to sing in parties and all sorts of great things like that. My mother worked for the Commonwealth Bank and she helped X amount of thousands of migrants with home loans and just getting settled into Australia at the Commonwealth Bank as part of her translation stuff. So I grew up a bit of a nerd, had back in the early, maybe 11, 12, I got involved at the computer club at school and I started writing code at, like 13 on a big IBM mainframe back at the education department in the mid-70s. I always knew that I wanted to be in technology, and so I did a maths science degree at Adelaide Uni in the early 80s, did maths, stats, pure maths, applied maths, computing, all that good stuff in the early 80s where no one knew anything about what a computer could do or what a computer could be. Went to my first job in 1983 in Department of Finance in Canberra, doing COBOL code on a big IBM mainframe for the Department of Finance. Came back and spent 3 years at the Australian Bureau of Statistics here in Adelaide, learnt a language called SAS, got involved in my passion for data, and that passion stayed with me for the next 40 years, which is where I am today. In the middle of all that, got married, had kids, 2 gorgeous adult kids, had a passion for music, so I've been involved with 5 public youth community radio stations in Adelaide, and set up one with my really dear friend Chris Despotakis, and I was a chairman of Fresh 6 years. Did some good stuff there. Currently on air in a radio station at Semaphore as my hobby. I work at the ANZ Bank, which is fabulous, in a data governance role. My life currently, I had a change in direction 5 years ago and got involved with an organisation called the Data Management Association, and currently the national chairman of that. And then a year ago, the global parent Data Management Association International, DAMA International, offered me a global VP marketing role on the global board. So I'm doing that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in my life. I've reinvented myself several times. I can't recall how many times I've fallen flat and reinvented myself and started again, and just learnt more, and probably do better at every iteration. I've become a better person, emotionally, spiritually, whole bunch of things. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a complicated person, but then again, I'm pretty much, hopefully, on the one hand, it's a complicated life, or diverse life, but on the other hand, it's probably a bit of a roadmap for maybe others to be able to, set themselves a goal and just keep going at it until they get what they want. So I suppose that's a bit of a legacy thing that I think I can demonstrate to people around me, and to the community more broadly. My parents were hugely community focused. There's a group called AHEPA, which is a Greek community, sort of Australian Hellenic Educational Progressive Association, I think that's what it's called. I was given a gift, and the gift is that we as the children of migrants in Australia, we have not so much an obligation, but a right to invest in our community more than what we take from it, but to give back. So I really, I like to think that I followed my parents' footsteps on that. Another one of my community interests is the Foundation for Hellenic Studies. 8 years now, 7-8 years, and we've done some really interesting things together. Just got lots on my plate, and I just enjoy the fact that I'm able to do such thing, have a supportive family structure that enables me to take myself to the limits of where I think I can, or how can I put it this way? I'll turn it around in another way. I think one of my philosophies after, turning 60 not that long ago is that we should never underestimate our capacity to do things. I keep pushing myself so that I can achieve the next thing, whatever that thing is, in this journey called life. So that's a little bit about me.
That's fantastic, Andrew. So you were an early adopter of technology.
Yeah, of course.
A self-proclaimed nerd.
Yeah, 100%.
Family man,
Yep.
community-minded,
Yep.
musical.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful mixture of talents and skills and interests, and I think that gives us great insight into the person that you are.
Sure.
So, Andrew, what has been one of your greatest challenges?
One of my greatest challenges is to rethink how I perceive the world. My parents came to Australia having left war situations twice in the 20th century, right? And I thought that the world is this place where everyone is at the same level as me in terms of mindset, cultural values. And I've spent my lifetime trying to work out where I fit culturally, intellectually, spiritually in my community. And so that's my biggest challenge in all of that, is how keep figuring out where I fit and what my destiny is. Not because my destiny is imposed by others. This is the destiny that I want for myself. So my biggest challenge is just to figure out my place in the world and what am I going to do to create the world to be hopefully a better place than how I found it.
Okay, so it's like identity. The identity of Andrew, with all those elements, and where is your place in the world, and what's the legacy you're going to leave by being uniquely you. Yeah,
and people say that a lot about me, is they call them Andrewisms, because they think I'm different, not from a position of arrogance, but just different to how I think about the world and how I perceive the world to be.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see it through the lens of someone else who reflects that back to you. As people who love life, we're always questioning what life is and what our place in life is. That philosophical saying, an unexamined life is not worth living, or something like that. You've got to be examining your life and see where you fit in and what you can contribute. Oh, I love that. So resilience is a word we hear a lot these days.
Yeah.
How important is resilience, and can you share a moment when you had to dig deep?
Sure. Oh, many moments. And every day is a little test for my resilience. Like, for example, I can picture a number of places where I needed to be resilient. And I think one of the most challenging parts of my life was about 3 years ago. I was hired by a Commonwealth government regulator. I won't mention names. And I was given a role to institutionalize the thing that I do, which is data governance. And I worked really hard for 18 months and ended up out of a job after 18 months, of working really hard to set up this thing called data governance. I was blaming myself a lot. I was unemployed, was working really hard, effectively found myself unemployed, and I said to myself, what am I going to do? And in the end, I wasn't unemployed for very long. It was like 1 month or less, and I found myself another job, and that's great. And I'm back on the train now and heading in the direction that I want. I've talked about this publicly in other podcasts and conferences, and that whole experience taught me that no matter what is thrown at me in terms of challenges, I will always find a way to get through it. Me as a mid-50s person, right? So, you've got to ask yourself, does ageism have a part to play? And it doesn't. It doesn't matter what you think or how. It doesn't matter what age you are. It's what you've got in your head and what attitude you've got. In terms of resilience, I think everyone has challenges. I think the real measure of who we are as people is how we deal with them and how we get through them and resolve the challenges in the best way that we can based on our cultural values and who we are as people. I mean, it's about being ethical. It's about morally correct, I think. My definition of resilience is that there's actually three things. The task of getting through the problem. The next task is how you do that and making sure that you keep your values intact. And I think the third thing is what you demonstrate to others about how you went about doing that. No matter what happens, you can find a way. I think you've got to teach yourself to compartmentalize the emotion from the objectivity. So that's how I've actually dealt with it. I've actually taken the emotion out of the thought process and just focused on the job at hand and working through a set of tasks and delivering those. That's what resilience means to me.
Yep. Withstanding the situation, applying yourself the best possible way to get the best outcome.
It's that negative voice in your head. How do you shut that negative voice in your head and saying, no, you can do this, but you've got to focus on X and suppress all the negative stuff and keep that out of your head. And if you do that, anyone can achieve anything if they just focused on the positives and not let cognitive biases reduce their capacity to achieve.
Yep. I like that.
You like that?
I like that.
Okay, good.
Reinvention can happen at any time in our life.
Yeah.
I know that I've had to face some of my toughest moments and bring forth a better and renewed version of myself. And it's not easy, but hey, someone's got to do it. And at the end of the day, I'm up to me, you're up to you. What's been a reinvention for you?
It happened about 5 years ago. I was a consultant, self-employed for many years, like 25 years. I was achieving a lot as a consultant, but I thought there was something I could do more. I decided, rightly or wrongly, I wanted to be independent. I wanted to run my own race. And then I realized, well, I wasn't getting what I want. I knew I could do more, but I wasn't achieving where I wanted to be, right? So I parked my consulting career in a corner, and I said, how am I going to reinvent myself as a corporate sort of person? And I took myself out of my comfort zone. I needed to. I just thought, this is the only way I'm going to grow is by taking myself out of my comfort zone. So I decided to go down the corporate route at mid-50s and work for a larger organisation and see where I could take it. So I worked for this regulator, which in the end didn't end well. Well, it didn't. It did end well because I learned a lot from it, right? So there was a lesson there, and I learned it. But then I got this role at ANZ, and it's been the best role of my career. And 3 years down, and I'm achieving things that I never thought I could do in a global bank. So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. So you got out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
Embarked on something new.
Yep.
and you're smashing it.
Yeah, I'm on the journey. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there.
Interesting, isn't it? So reinvention, it's about backing yourself. So
Yeah,
backing yourself and believing in something else beyond what you know. And in that discomfort,
yeah,
you have to grasp onto courage to keep going forward
sure.
and being vulnerable. Vulnerability is the
Yeah,
measure of courage, isn't it?
I think so. I know I'm not. I think so. I know. So having the confidence to be vulnerable.
Yes.
There's a difference, right? Vulnerability can either be weakness or it could be a sign of strength, right?
I believe it's a sign of strength.
It should be.
It should be. If you can be proactive in your life and take charge, otherwise it can be a weakness if you just sit there complicit and not actualizing to a higher level. You can become a victim. You can have a victim mentality with vulnerability.
Sure.
But to be vulnerable, you also need to be courageous to
Yeah.
face the lion in the room.
Yeah, and I spoke about that in my conferences, the presentations I do at conferences. My last slide was about vulnerability. And I did say to them, to the audience, that being vulnerable is how you're going to achieve success, but you can also achieve some weakness around personal attack. If you're vulnerable, you could leave yourself open to an attack, especially in a situation where you're in change. You're trying to be a change agent. And I said that your mental health needs to be protected. You've got to understand that vulnerability comes with having the capacity to protect yourself emotionally and intellectually. And that's not an easy skill to master, I don't think.
No, it's like walking on a tightrope, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I know at the times that I've had to, experience vulnerability and then dug deep and found the courage, I've emerged from it stronger and better, but it's a process.
Sure.
And it's not easy.
No.
And it's all in the mindset, and it's all in how you can have that self-belief.
Yeah.
And backing yourself.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. So what are the essential soft skills required in creating meaningful relationships at work and in life? Because we talk about hard skills with like data, something that's measurable, but what about the soft skills that we need in life to make it?
Well, in my professional career, I'm taught to be analytical, objective, procedural, clinical, and I talk about empathy and emotional intelligence in my speaking gigs. And so I like to think, if it wasn't for my emotional intelligence capacity, I wouldn't be where I am today in my career, right? So that's the differentiator between having a mediocre career to having an exemplary career. If you're able to tap into how do you connect with people. I mean, we're connecting here, right? And I've connected everywhere in my career, whether it's in my colleagues in India or my colleagues in Melbourne or my colleagues in Adelaide. I've used some skills around connecting with the things that are not spoken. Because if people communicate with you, it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. And then you've got to work out, by not saying certain things, there's an intention there, and you've got to understand what that intention is, and then have a mechanism of predicting what the next move should be to make sure that you can guide the relationship down a certain direction. So that's something I keep focusing on across my life, about how I can. I don't call it manipulative. That's not what the right word is. I think it's about steering relationships and achieving mutual goals, but it's a question is understanding what that goal is. Yes. For myself and for the people that I work with.
So it's a bit like nurturing that relationship.
Understanding it first. I mean, you've got to nurture something. You've got to understand what feeds that relationship and provides it the stimulus to progress, right? So I think that's the soft skill that I've developed all my life, is to work out how to get the best of myself, but how to get the best of other people around me, and including my staff and my team members and my colleagues, because a lot of my role is actually mentoring and educating and providing guidance on how to go about doing things, especially new things which they haven't done before. So that needs a lot. 90% of my job is about people. 10% is about data.
It's a wonderful marriage.
Yeah, it's a complex one.
Yeah,
it's a marriage that's not easy to bring that together. But I think it doesn't matter who you are in what you do, science, technology, office work, community work, if you're not able to bring the subject matter of what you do with the human skills you're not going to achieve, I don't think you'll achieve the outcomes that you really want.
No, people connect with other people. They want to know that there's someone there that can understand them,
Sure.
that they're being heard, what they're being said is reflected back to them,
Yeah.
because that creates rapport, and
Of
that
course.
creates trust, and then the rest can flow from there.
Sure.
Yeah. So Einstein is quoted as saying, creativity is intelligence having fun. Your other passion is music.
Yeah.
And I'm certain that there was an intersection of creativity and fun.
Yeah, sure.
So let's talk about that.
My parents were very musical. There was my grandpa, my mum, and my dad. They used to play as a trio at a lot of parties in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. So I grew up with that music all my life. And then, I just started uni in 1980, and I discovered nightclubs, like we all did back in those days. We were, 17, 18, and I just discovered that you could play music. So I started collecting vinyl, and I started DJing when I was at uni, and had lots of fun doing youth shows, like Agua Fuga Youth. Agua and Fuga is a Greek uni association from Adelaide Uni and Flinders Uni, and we did these wonderful parties. One of my biggest events was with my friend Evan Frangos. We had 3,000 people at Don Polsky Centre, one Christmas show in 1983, I think it was. Anyway, so I then got involved in radio, which was a passion. It became my passion. So, and that was through my friend Christos Patakis, who runs Radio Enna. Dear friend of mine. I was on air at 3D Radio on McGill Road for 8 years, playing disco back in the 80s, which is when disco was around, and then house. And then later on, Chris and I co-founded Dance 100 on FM radio. That we shut that down because we didn't get the permanent license that we were looking for. Then I ended up on the board of Fresh FM in 2005 for 6 years, was vice chairman and then chairman. So I was really proud of my 6 years at Fresh. Helped triple the business, moved it into Rundle Street, which is where it is today. And Fresh is now this monster radio station, which is Australia's most successful youth community radio station. So I'm pretty proud of that, what I did back 10, 11 years ago. I'm on air now just I took the Dance 100 brand and just reinvented that at a little radio station in Semaphore called Wow FM. So, it's been with me for 40 years, this whole journey with music. And it's just my creative outlet, Jeannie, because my work is pretty bland. I mean, it's not bland. I mean, it's very creative, but music is where I can express myself. Yeah.
Well, I think you've left an indelible mark in the music industry. I think I was at the Don Polsky Centre all those years ago.
Were you?
And there's a little confession here. I must say, with Fresh FM, there's nothing like the Sunday morning soundtrack.
Yeah.
If you're driving along, the recovery soundtrack. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, Dave Collins on Sunday mornings kills it.
He does.
And Dave, I'll give you the little story. I'll share with you a little story. It was 1999. I get a phone call. We had just started Dance 100 with Chris. I get a call from Dave Collins saying, "Andrew, I hear you've got a radio station. Can I come on it?" So Dave joined us as one of the DJs 23 years ago at Dance 100. And then when we shut down, he went to Fresh, and here he is still today on Fresh, and he's just a legend for the South Australian music scene, and he's been my friend for all that time. So
it's wonderful, the relationships that are long lasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've shaped the music industry. You really have in that sense of starting a radio station or being chair of the radio station and having the vision, for this different radio station and for the top 100.
Sure. I don't know. I just like doing things, right?
It influences the industry, if you like.
I like doing things. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's the process. It's the journey, not the destination. Okay. So I just love going through the journey. And when I hit the destination, I go for my next target and, jump on and do something about that. So I just enjoy it.
Yep. It's the creative journey, not the destination.
Sure.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what have been some of your memorable highs?
Obviously, the birth of my kids. Obviously, we all remember the day, and we remember the things about big events like weddings and christenings and those sort of things from a personal perspective. Your first house, your second house, all that sort of stuff. I think from a professional perspective, things that have happened to me in the last 5 years, I could have never imagined. If you asked me 10, 15 years ago that I'd achieve some of the things that have happened in my life in the last 5 years, I could have never dreamt it. And yet it's happened. So I suppose I've got to say to myself, yeah, okay, you got there, now what's next, right? So I'm just still working, I'm still a work in progress. So that's a big moment for me. And I think some of the things that I've done in terms of my career, and just I'm thinking deeply here. I think the stuff that I helped do with Fresh, that was a big thing for me. Fresh, when I got involved, 2005, was a youth community radio station managed by a group of really smart volunteers who worked really hard, but it needed some corporate direction and some governance. So I helped achieve that and just put the organisation back on a path for growth, commercial growth, and that's I'm proud of that.
That's a good part of the legacy, all of those things that you've mentioned personally and professionally.
Yeah.
That you can look back, the 60th year, looking back and saying you've been part of this journey in multiple people's lives and careers. It's wonderful. How do you stay motivated?
Setting goals. I can't sit still, Jeannie. I just think of what my next year is going to be and what I'm going to do. You wake up as a 60-year-old, you know that organically you've got fewer days ahead of you than what you've had, right? So you've got to stay focused on not what's happened, but you've got to stay focused on what you want to achieve, because one day we're going to all expire, right? So I stay motivated by setting myself a goal and giving myself a target that I need to work towards, whether it's emotionally, intellectually, career, personal relationships. My weight, I want to lose weight. I mean, that's probably my last goal that I want to set for myself, is actually change my physical appearance, and do things for my health. A lot of other things are actually going really okay. So that's my last challenge. And then I'll think about retiring eventually, but I don't think I'll retire. Not the type of retirement where I'm sitting there on a beach or playing golf all day. That's not me.
No. I think you're too active and you're too future focused, and you still have a lot of energy and intellect to contribute to various projects.
Sure.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. Like, I can't imagine myself just sitting around doing nothing. I've got so many goals that I've always had through my life. I love life, and I love working towards something. And,
sure.
And I think it keeps us young and agile and interested in life.
For sure.
Yeah. So who's your biggest inspiration, Andrew?
I use this in my work. I love Elon Musk. I mean, politically, I think he's just gone off the rails politically. But in terms of what he's done in his life, in his short life, It's just amazing. I use a lot of what his principles are in my own professional life. And I tell our team members, think about what Elon would do in this situation. I look at some situations where we face at work, and I speak with my team and I'm saying, this is how Elon Musk would have dealt with this problem. And I show them how he's done it. And he's my biggest inspiration in my last 10 years because of just how he's challenged people's conventional wisdom and turned seemingly impossible problems into successes. And that's just someone to do that. There's so much I could learn from a person like him. So I get inspired by him a lot. 2 nights ago, I had a dream that I had an interview with him.
Oh.
Like he was sitting there in my dream. It was where you are now, next to me, and we were having an interview, either on a project or a podcast. I can't remember what the dream was, but it was just something about me getting to meet this guy and speaking with him about how he thinks. Just the fact that he dreamt one day that you could build a rocket that could land and be reused, which everyone thought was impossible when he did it. So it just tells me that you could be anyone and you can do anything if you really applied yourself. And it's just an inspiration for me.
Is there someone who's helped your thinking and mindset besides Elon Musk?
Oh, yeah. I can quote you my biggest mentor. He's no longer with us, but that's Basil Taliangis.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He was my second dad growing up. He was one of my parents' best friends. He taught me so much, and about how he worked really hard for his community. I learnt so much, and he was such a strong force in my early years next to my father. So, he was incredibly inspirational for me in my life, my early years. The work that I'm doing now on the Healing Foundation he co-founded that, and he's no longer with us. So I'm sitting in that room because it's basically as a thank you to him for what he did for me to continue his legacy.
That's wonderful, Andrew, and it's great to remember that and honor that experience and that mentorship.
Yeah.
There's very special people that come into our lives, and to actually acknowledge them. And I have many, and I think about them often, and I know that I am the person I am because of the experiences I've had.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's great. And there's a certain amount of comfort with that, though, isn't there? That you've had that experience and you can bring it to the room.
I think there's a lot of emotional maturity to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Not everyone is able to acknowledge that they've had inspirational people that have affected them, because there's a veneer of ego too, right? Most people carry, I think, an ego which doesn't allow them to acknowledge the people that have inspired you is actually liberating for yourself, right? Because if you say, "Oh, no one's helped me," what are we, an island on our own, right? Well, of course not. We've always grown up with people around us. So I think it's important to acknowledge certain individuals. And my wife, Vicky, I've learned so much from her because we're very different people. So we've actually learned from each other. So I think, obviously there's people in your life that bring something to you that you don't have yourself. You get naturally attracted to things that are different or opposite to you. So,
and complement you.
And complement.
Yes.
Complement one another.
Yes. How do you celebrate your wins?
That's an interesting question. I smile a lot. Celebrated with my friends and my family. You also have to share your losses as well, right? So it's both. It's not just one thing. I celebrate by saying to myself, "Oh yeah, that's a goal you set yourself. Got it." Part of my celebration is what's my next goal.
Yeah, acknowledging it and then moving forward.
And moving forward.
Yeah. So many people define success as bigger, faster, better, as in bigger house, faster car, better school, luxury possessions. What does success mean to you?
All of that, but not in the material things. right? This is bigger personality, challenging my own weaknesses and working on those. It's self-improvement. That's how I measure my own success, is what have I done for myself to make myself a better person or more effective person or more successful in terms of reaching goals. It's not about the money. It's about what I do and in what I create and what changes I can make for others. And I think if you achieve that, material success will follow. You've got to give more and deliver more, and that's the success for me. Is that's the goal, is delivering that, and then materiality follows that. I think if you're too caught up in money, that's just not satisfactory, is it? Or it's not satisfactory to me as a human.
How can you help another person? How can you influence someone and see a better outcome for someone else? And that's a measure of success. Yeah, it's not all about attaining things and amassing items and material possessions. That can come, but you've got to be the person first and foremost.
I think so.
Yeah.
I know so.
Yeah.
No, I know so. And it's taken me a lifetime to work that out.
Yeah, and that's where the legacy is. You know, just like you can talk about Basil Andrews, someone is going to be talking about Andrew Andrews.
Okay. Not sure about that, but that's okay.
I would say that you've influenced a lot of lives. So, yeah, I think
Thank you.
That would be a truth for sure. What's the best piece of advice that you've received?
Never doubt myself. And it's not just one person, it's actually a collection of people helping me. I mean, I suffered from imposter syndrome. It's taken me 50 years to work that out. And I doubted myself. I doubted myself a lot. And every time something happened to me that wasn't right, it just reinforced the negative voices in my head, right? And I've had to work out that no, those negative voices is just it's negative emotions which I needed to shut down or to acknowledge that they exist, but not place any priority to them.
Yes, I agree. So it's interesting. My friend Margaret said to me that our positive emotions are like on Teflon, they slip away.
Yeah.
And the negative emotions are like Velcro and they stick.
Yeah.
So it's about how do we navigate the Velcro and the Teflon.
I flip that on its head, right? Yeah. So the negative stuff, I let it wash over me, and the good stuff I attract.
Yeah.
I want to attract more positive things in my life.
Yeah. And bathe in the positivity, because that breeds more positivity.
I think, so, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on?
You know, I was this nerdy kid growing up, and I studied computing. I mean, in the 80s, in the 70s actually, and I didn't fit in. You know, at high school and at primary school, I was bullied at high school and bullied in primary school. I just didn't fit in. I was not a cool kid, and so I was not the cool kid. And then you become an adult. I became an adult. And with a different mindset to most people, I don't know, I just had something in my head that made me think differently. So I just want, and I'm sure there's people out there who probably feel the same way or have experienced the same things. And just the only thing I could say is just believe in yourself that you can be whoever you want to be, but you've just got to train your mind to shut out the negativity that comes with potentially people who don't want to see you succeed. And that's something that really is really important to me. It's important to myself that I will never let anyone tell me that I can't do something or can't achieve something. And I just got to just focus on that.
Be your own champion.
100%.
Yeah. And push through. Self-actualize.
Yep.
All of that. Yeah. Fantastic. Now, Andrew, we have some 22 questions.
Okay.
Short, sharp answers. One
Sure.
word where possible. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Sure, go.
Cool. What makes you smile?
My kids.
What's your favourite cuisine?
Asian.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Pacific Island, Bali, somewhere nice, warm, with a beach, and preferably alcohol.
Sounds like a plan. Do you prefer to text or to call?
I do both because I think younger generation rely on text way too much, and I always prefer calling first and then following it up with a text message. But I think we get a lot more. I'm sure there's some scientific studies that says the value of communication starts with human, actual person-to-person contact, and then comes the phone call, and then it comes the email and written word and all that. I prefer voice calls. I do lots of voice calls.
Yeah. Do you play an instrument? Do you sing? Do you dance? Do you whistle?
The instrument I play is my DJ console. Right, that's my instrument. Is
Yeah.
what I do there.
What's your happy place?
The radio station, sitting in front of a console, playing music to an audience.
Sounds great. What movie would you recommend?
It's not a movie. It's actually a TV series. It's The West Wing. I watched that. I've watched every episode 10 times over, minimum. And it's not for the politics, it's for the lessons in life that it taught me. It's for the messages in the passages rather than the politics.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand.
Sorkin is a genius with the way he writes his material, and I just love the guy, what he does.
Fantastic. What's your favourite city and why?
I went just recently to San Diego. Never been there before, and I just fell in love with the place. Right? If you can measure a city by its airport, you walk into San Diego airport and you're saying, I'm home. I really felt at home. It's got you got the beach stores, the surf shops in the airport. It's got this a tropical vibe about it. And then you walk along the coast, along the beaches, and it's just amazing. You feel like you're in Australia, but you're in you're in a state which is the fifth largest world economy. So, I really enjoyed I was only there for a few days, but I really enjoyed it.
Do you prefer white wine, red wine, champagne, or any other drink?
It's got to be a white wine.
What's your secret pleasure?
Oh, it's not so secret. It's my walks that I do along the beach.
What's your biggest strength?
Overcoming the negative voices in my head, I think. I had to think about that, but that's something I've had to teach myself.
If you're a hashtag, what would it be?
Determined.
Do you have an exercise routine?
Just walking.
Mm-hmm. If you could catch up with anyone, who would it be?
Oh, Elon Musk, for sure.
That interview might happen yet, you never know.
I dreamt it, so, who knows?
Who knows? I'll send him this one. What's your favourite meal, breakfast, lunch or dinner?
Oh, dinner, for sure. The reason why is that it's normally where I catch up with friends.
What inspires you?
In seeing other people's successes and learning from them and seeing what I can take from that for myself.
What's your favourite time of day?
Evening, when I'm watching YouTube videos and disconnecting and just absorb. I don't read. My wife's a mad reader. I'm not. So I absorb my content using YouTube, and I just watch hours and hours of just random YouTube videos and just learning that way.
What was the best holiday you've had?
Every time I've gone to Bali, I've gone with friends, DJ at a wedding in Bali, dear friends of mine, Jack and Julie. That was just my best holiday ever.
Absolutely.
DJing at their wedding.
Fantastic.
7 years ago in Bali. I just had such a good time.
Yeah. What an experience. Yeah. Do you enjoy sweet or savoury?
Sweet, 100%.
Do you speak another language?
Greek, obviously. a little bit of my parents. I have you a little story. My parents used to speak French at home when they didn't want me to understand what they were saying. They wouldn't speak Greek because I knew Greek. They wouldn't speak English, so they just dropped into speaking French. So I've got a little bit of French in me, right? And my grandmother on my dad's side was French-Romanian, so...
Oh, okay.
Right?
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I slipped into a little secret love language.
Yeah.
How would you like to be remembered?
I think a happy guy who worked hard and tried to do some things that are good.
That's fantastic. Andrew, thank you so much for being on my podcast and for spending your time telling your story.
Yeah, thank you, Jeannie.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, good. It's been great for me. Good. It's been therapeutic. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Until next time.
See ya.
You've been listening to Business Class presented by Eugenia Panterhos, founder of Business Class Collective. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcast, subscribe, rate and review this podcast. Share the love and let your family and friends know too. You can follow Business Class Collective on Instagram and Facebook. Join me next time.